The year was 1955 when Emmett Till, a 14-year-old African-American visiting family in Money, Mississippi, was brutally killed on August the 28th. The reason for this senseless act was believed to be his alleged interaction with a white woman just 4 days before. Emmett was compelled by his assailants, the husband of the white woman and his brother, to transport a 75-pound cotton gin fan to the shore of the Tallahatchie River and then commanded to remove his clothing. The pair of men proceeded to brutally attack him, leaving him on the brink of death. They even went as far as to remove his eye, shoot him in the head, and finally dispose of his body by tying it to a cotton gin fan with barbed wire and throwing it into the river. Growing up in a working-class area in South Chicago, Till experienced segregation at his elementary school. However, the level of segregation he faced in Mississippi took him by surprise. Despite his mother's warnings about racial discrimination, Emmett found joy in playing pranks. While in Money on August the 24th, Emmett stood with his cousins and friends outside the country store and boasted about having a white girlfriend back home. His companions did not believe him and dared him to ask the white woman behind the store counter out on a date. Upon entering the store, he purchased some candy, and as he exited, he cheerfully bid farewell to the woman. Despite there being no witnesses inside the store, Carolyn Bryant, the woman working at the counter, later accused him of making unwanted advances, harassing her, and whistling at her as he left. After returning from a business trip, Roy Bryant, the store proprietor, and the woman's husband, was informed about Emmett's alleged conversation with his wife. This made him furious, prompting him to visit the home of Till's great-uncle, Moses Wright, accompanied by his half-brother, J.W. Milam, in the early morning hours of August the 28th. The couple demanded a meeting with the boy. Disregarding Wright's appeals, they ushered Emmett into their car following a night drive and potentially subjecting Till to violence in a shed near Milam's home. They transported him to the Tallahatchie River. 3 days later, they recovered his body, but it was so disfigured that Moses Wright could only identify it by an initial ring. Despite the authorities' wishes to bury the body quickly, Mamie Bradley, Till's mother, requested that it be sent back to Chicago. Faced with the disturbing reality of her son's mutilated body, she chose to have an open-casket funeral to reveal the atrocities committed by the racist perpetrators. Jet, a respected African-American magazine, published a photo of Emmett's remains, prompting widespread attention from the mainstream media. Less than 2 weeks after Emmett was buried, Milam and Bryant were on trial in a segregated courthouse in Sumner, Mississippi. Apart from Moses Wright, there were few witnesses, but Wright was certain in identifying the defendant as Emmett's killers. Less than an hour of deliberation led to the all-white jury's verdict of not guilty on September the 23rd. They cited the state's failure to prove the identity of the body as the reason behind their decision. The public was furious, not only about the verdict, but also about the state's refusal to indict Milam and Bryant for kidnapping. The trial of Emmett Till shed light on the harsh reality of Jim Crow segregation in the southern states and played a significant role in sparking the civil rights movement. The year 2017 brought a surprising twist when Tim Tyson, the author of The Blood of Emmett Till, uncovered the truth. Carol Bryant, later known as Carolyn Bryant Dunham, confessed that her testimony was in fact false, revealing that Emmett Till had never touched, threatened, or harassed her. Nothing that boy did could ever justify what happened to him, she said. In the year 2022, a grand jury in Mississippi opted not to indict Bryant for her involvement in the crime almost 70 years ago. Bryant passed away in 2023. In March of 2022, President Joe Biden took a historic step by signing the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act into law, officially designating lynching as a federal hate crime. 100 days following Till's tragic death, Rosa Parks made history by refusing to surrender her seat to a white passenger on a bus in Montgomery. This act of defiance led to her arrest for breaking Alabama's segregation laws. Reverend Jesse Jackson told Vanity Fair in 1988 that Rosa said she thought about going to the back of the bus, but then she thought about Emmett Till and she could not do it. The Bryant grocery store shut down not long after the trial due to a boycott, prompting the Bryants and Milam to relocate to Texas. Under Joanne Robinson's leadership, the Women's Democratic Council organized a citywide bus boycott and reached out to a 26-year-old minister for support. This minister happened to be Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., who was profoundly moved by Till's tragic fate and delivered a stirring sermon following Bryant and Milam's acquittal. Dr. King skillfully utilized the collective outrage to mobilize the nation against social and racial injustices, often alluding to Till's murder to emphasize the horrors of racial discrimination in his speeches. He even evoked the crying voice of little Emmett C. Till, screaming from the rushing waters in Mississippi during a sermon on Mother's Day in 1963. Subsequently, on the anniversary of Till's tragic death, Dr. King delivered his unforgettable "I Have a Dream" speech at the March on Washington. Emmett Louis Till's tragic story is a powerful reminder of the deep-rooted racism and violence that plagued America during the Jim Crow era. As we reflect on his life, let us honor his memory by continuing to fight for justice, equality, and compassion. May we never forget the pain he endured and the courage of his mother, Mamie Till Bradley, who insisted on an open-casket funeral to expose the world to the brutality of racism. Let Emmett's legacy inspire us to create a more just and compassionate society where no one suffers such senseless violence again.